Hello and welcome back to Between the 20s. We are very excited for this upcoming football season. Hopefully it happens. Right? I know Bryce has his fingers crossed. Really, I struggle at fantasy football, but I'm excited to be back. Um, but with that, we are breaking down our top 50 fantasy players today. And we have a great list for you. But first, we have the best two guys that have to be introduced. Amer, Bryce, what's going on, gentlemen?
Just living, man. Just trying to survive the COVID times.
Very grim, but okay.
Just trying to enjoy the rest of the summer. It's going to be, end of August here. It'll stay hot for a little while, no matter where you are in the country, basically. But from then on, we hit fall. So trying to enjoy the sunshine while I can.
Bryce saying the end of August. It is August 29th today. So really enjoying the end those last 3 days.
Squeeze in every day of August he can get with this.
A lot of positivity coming from you two so far. So
hey,
I
Mike,
love it.
no, the best day of the year's coming up. Draft day, NFL draft.
Draft day.
Best day of the year, boys.
Amer surviving and Bryce is counting down the last 3 days of summer. Very exciting. But yeah, so with that, we're going to jump right into our top 50. We've each done our separate rankings of the top 60 players, just so that our top 50 were indeed ranked by all of us, because some of us have a bit of discrepancy with others. That turned out to be Amer with the most discrepancy this time. Not to name any names. But yeah, so with that, we're going to jump right in. We'll start off with Amer is going to go over the first guy. We have some guys where there is a bit more of a discrepancy amongst us. So we're going to kind of focus on those and really explain why that discrepancy exists, because we bring three kind of representative fantasy minds in our heads. But we always love your comments and your opinions. So if you have them, leave them below. We will probably discuss them if we get it. But with
when
that,
we get it, not if, Mike. We get a ton of comments on these videos. We always talk about them.
Amer, start us off.
Easy number one, guys. Everyone saw this coming. Christian McCaffrey, running back one. It's obvious. He's a machine. His ability to catch passes is unrivaled in terms of running backs. And at a position where you need a ton of depth, Christian McCaffrey is number one.
Definitely. No question.
Coming in at number two here is going to be Saquon Barkley, the New York Giants. He is RB2 overall for us. Again, like Christian McCaffrey, it's a no-brainer. Dual threat, and the Giants are going to be playing from behind a lot, so expect a lot of work from him in the passing game. We should mention these are half-point PPR rankings, so trying to get something representative here for everybody. Saquon Barkley checking in at number two, consensus across the first two picks.
Yeah, totally consensus. But now we bring in, not really worthy of discussion. I just have him at, Bryce has him at 4. We all have, Amer and I have him at 3. Ezekiel Elliott as our third overall.
Yeah, consistent as can be, Ezekiel Elliott. He always finishes in the top 10, top 7 for as long as his career has been. So no different this year. He's probably one of the safest guys in this draft, probably top 2 safe guys in this draft.
Nothing fantasy owner loves more than watching him jump into that Salvation Army thing and Thanksgiving after a touchdown.
Love it. He's a gift that keeps on giving.
Eat it up. Eating up.
All right, moving on from Ezekiel Elliott, we got number 4. Coming in at number 4 is Dalvin Cook. We all seem to agree on this. Bryce has him a little bit lower at 5, but generally we're all right here.
Yep. Then number 5 overall is going to be Saints running back Alvin Kamara. This is kind of our first major descent here. Amer has him right at 5. I'm a little high. I have him at 3. Mike is a little low. He's got him at 7. So just my rationale on that. I think he's the biggest touchdown positive regression candidate in the league. Only scored 3 times last year. He had an MCL injury. He's coming back from it. I just think he's going to be absolutely electric this year. And for as poorly as he did last season, relatively speaking, I think he has a chance to completely flip the script. But, Mike, do you have anything on why you have him at 7?
Yes, I have him at 7 because he was not very good last year on my fantasy team. It was very frustrating. I come from the philosophy of don't get burned twice. And I think that there's only a downward kind of trajectory right now for Alvin Kamara. As you mentioned, he has struggled with injuries. And Drew Brees, the center of that offense, is aging, which leaves a lot to be sort of questioned there. And the two people I have in front of him, Michael Thomas, who I feel who, despite the Saints offense, I think would catch passes from anybody, and Derrick Henry, who I feel like is a running back you can get sort of more, with a much more ceiling, I think is really the word that I'm looking for here. He's on the upward trajectory of his career, and the sky's the limit this season for Derrick Henry. So at 6th overall, we have Michael Thomas. Not too much discrepancy there either.
Yeah, this guy's consistent as can be from the wide receiver position. He broke tons of records last year. If he gets like more touchdowns, if he has like an up touchdown year, he could be easily the number one player in fantasy this year. So he's a safe guy, and that's why he's up here with the running backs, even though he's a wide receiver. And so coming up next, we got Derrick Henry. I'm a little bit lower than these guys on Derrick Henry, just because this is a half PPR league, and Derrick Henry gives you almost nothing in the passing game. But his production on the ground is just awesome. He led the league in rushing last year. He had a ton of touchdowns. And with this Titans offense, I think they're going to do the same thing. They had a lot of success at the end of last year, took them into the playoffs and into the AFC Championship game, actually. So I see the Titans kind of sticking with the game plan they had last year, and Derrick Henry's a huge part of that.
Yeah, as long as the body holds up, because he does ground and pound. That's the only issue, but relatively no injury history. So should hold up fine. He's here at 7. Then at 8 is another guy that we've highlighted here that we want to talk about both literally and figuratively. When I look at our sheet here is Kansas City running back, rookie Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We haven't seen a rookie running back go this high or be projected in the first round since Saquon Barkley was a rookie for the Giants. That worked out just fine. Amr has him at 7. I have him right here at 8. But Mike, a little bit low here at 13. What say you?
This is going to be very hypocritical coming from someone who took Dalvin Cook with the 3rd overall pick in our draft last week. But I think that in your number 1 slot, you want to pick it, not necessarily – I agree. I see why fantasy people are taking him early, but I just don't think that draft strategy is really something that will be very good for you. Because in your first round, you're looking for that solid guy who week in, week out will deliver consistent points. And there's a big question mark out here with CEH, as he's called, because he's a rookie. As I like to point out on the ESPN draft, he's in a suit in his picture because he was just drafted, but not in uniform.
He's looking fresh.
Suit guy.
Exactly. Suit guy. We have a suit guy here. And I like the suit guys late in the draft because of that question mark. They offer a lot of upside, but I am not taking him this early. I feel like I could totally see a scenario where he's a top 5 running back, sure, but I could also see a scenario where he really just has an awful first 3 weeks, and then he's replaced very easily. So that's kind of my rationale here. Exactly. I think that's enough said. And I don't have him that far away. I have him as a top sort of 2nd round pick.
Yeah, Mike has him right at the top of the 2nd round at the 201 if he was drafting. I just think, just to kind of go against some of those opinions, I think what's really great about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his upside is running back 1. I think he easily has that upside. He's on the best offense in football. He's got Andy Reid, who always likes to have one running back. Andy Reid's not really a running back by committee guy. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the guy in Kansas City. And if you look at his college tape, he was awesome at LSU. And the last thing, Mike doesn't like rookies that much. I think that's a legitimate concern if you're talking about running backs or if you're talking about wide receivers. But if you're talking about running backs, they seem to hit the ground running and just go.
One more comment before we head on to number 9. Sticking with Clyde Edwards-Helaire for a second. We saw what happened with Kareem Hunt when he was a rookie in the Chiefs system. It could happen again. Kareem Hunt was electric his rookie year. So it's not out of the question for –
All I'm trying to say is you don't want could in your first round draft pick.
It's valid. It is definitely valid.
And I just feel like the 2 running backs I have ranked above him, and Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs, those are 2 guys who are also running back 1s and also are just more solidified in their roles.
Fair enough. This is why we do this.
Who's up next?
So up next, we have Davante Adams, Green Bay wide receiver. We're all kind of in consensus with him too.
Yep. After Davante Adams, we got Josh Jacobs, some guy that Bryce just mentioned, running back 11, top 10 guy this year.
Then checking in at 11 overall is going to be Aaron Jones. So the other guy that Mike just mentioned, Green Bay Packer running back. He can really explode at 2 4-touchdown games last year. Guy's electric on an interesting offense coming into this year. But Aaron Jones checking in at 11 overall.
And at 12 overall, we have Julio Jones, obviously first string wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, guys, everyone knows how good Julio Jones is. Over the past 6 years, he's averaged 1,500 yards per season, which is just insane. He consistently ends as the top 5 wide receiver, even though he doesn't score a lot of touchdowns, which is kind of a random thing. So if those touchdowns come up this year, he could easily be the wide receiver 1, Julio Jones.
Yep.
And coming up next, talk about big plays and big touchdowns. We got Tyreek Hill coming up next with the Kansas City Chiefs. We all got him right here at the beginning of the second round. Like we talked about with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, best offensive football, and this is pretty much the big target guy, Tyreek Hill.
Coming in after this at 14 is Arizona Cardinal running back Kenyon Drake. We do have some disagreement here. I have him at 19, so I'm a little low. Amar's got him at 12. He's on the higher end. Mike's got him at 15. He just comes in with a couple question marks. He shows himself at the end of last year, but we're buying him as a low-end RB1 here. 14th overall, top of the second round.
Yeah, I like him as a first round pick. Right at the end of the first round at number 12, I ranked him just because this offense is going to be really good. You saw last year he was running back 3 from the time he got into the Cardinals till the end of the season, and the Cardinals running back, whoever it was, whether it was David Johnson or Kenyon Drake, throughout the whole season last year was the running back 3. So this guy's got a ton of upside. And there are some question marks. He hasn't really shown it for a full season yet. So we don't know if his body can handle the physical workload, but I like Kenyon Drake this year.
And then at 15 overall, we have a little bit of a discrepancy here. We have Nick Chubb. And I'm going to preface this with a article I read in the New York Post today where they discuss, it's about Miles Sanders, but they also mentioned Nick Chubb. And they say that, quoting directly, over the first 8 games, Chubb averaged 100.4 rushing yards per game, had 6 touchdowns, and caught 25 passes for 161 yards. Pretty good.
Very good.
But after Kareem Hunt arrived, the final 8 games, Chubb averaged 86.4 yards per game, 2 touchdowns, and just 11 receptions for 117 yards. He went from averaging 20 PPR points to only 13. Not very good. Not very good for a second-round pick there, gentlemen.
Yeah, I split the difference between you two guys on Nick Chubb. Bryce has him lowest, or Mike has him lowest at 20, and Bryce has him up at 12. I seem to be closer to Mike on this one, which is a weird thing to say on this show. Not something you hear every day in between the 20s, but I just think, especially since this is a half PPR league, Nick Chubb, similar to Derrick Henry, gives you not a lot in the passing game, especially with Kareem Hunt, who the Browns seem to want to use him as the passing down guy. I do think that one positive for Nick Chubb is, first of all, he's amazingly talented, which we've seen for the past couple of years, and he's getting a better head coach, Kevin Stefanski, who everyone saw what happened with Nick Chubb last year.
I'll tell you why I'm a little high on him. One is going to be Amr, so you said he's a great talent, and personally, I think he could be this year's Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry offers, you said it, nothing in the passing game, maybe a target. Nick Chubb does give you a little bit more. And Amr, because you cut out, I don't know if you mentioned it, but Kevin Stefanski is there. And, I mean, Dalvin Cook last year, that's really it for me. He could be in line for 20 touches, even with Kareem Hunt.
Let's play this game, Bryce. Let's see how much you really are feeling this number 12 ranking.
Okay.
So we'll go by your rankings. And let's see. At 13, you have Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
You're telling me that you're sitting there at the end of the first round and you would take Nick Chubb over Josh Jacobs.
That's exactly right. I absolutely would.
And Aaron Jones.
I absolutely would. Aaron Jones is the best football talent of the three of them. He's the best football player.
I totally disagree with that. I actually disagree with that. In terms of football talent, I don't want to get too off track here. In terms of football talent, I think Nick Chubb is at the top of this list.
Interesting. I think Nick Chubb has the best situation of all three. What scares me?
I think his situation's the worst.
What scares me about Josh, I'm talking about touches here. What scares me about Josh Jacobs, they're playing a division with the Broncos and the Chiefs. They're going to have to put up points. I don't know how much Nick Chubb's going to get the ball. Josh Jacobs is going to get the ball.
disagree. I see them. He's the only guy there, though. Kareem Hunt is breathing down Nick Chubb's neck.
Kareem Hunt gets no carries. And I'm convinced Stefanski is going to go run heavy just like he did in Minnesota. Because Baker is a little reminiscent of Kirk Cousins in the way that they play.
Ooh, okay, interesting.
High accuracy quarterback, not too much depth to their game. I think it's an interesting situation.
I think Josh Jacobs has tremendous upside. I think they're going to use him a ton this year. I think he's going to get way involved in the passing game, which is something I don't think we're going to be saying about Nick Chubb. So next up, we got Austin Ekeler coming in at number 16. Bryce loves Austin Ekeler this year. Mike?
Very high on Austin Ekeler this year.
Not so much.
So I guess I'll kick this off because in terms of discrepancy, this is the same as Nick Chubb, but even to a greater extent. So I have him at 9. I actually have him inside my top 10. I think Austin Ekeler is a first-round pick as long as you're not in standard leagues. The guy is getting double-digit targets consistently. He was putting up multiple 20, 30-point games, even with Melvin Gordon there, and now he's the guy. Not to mention, he goes from Phillip Rivers to Tyrod Taylor or Justin Herbert. That feels more like a lateral move than any kind of other move where you have a guy that's more of a check down Charlie and Tyrod Taylor and a rookie quarterback who might have a safety net in Austin Ekeler. I think he's ticketed for a massive, massive year.
Amr, you want to take it? Do you want me to go?
I can start off. You can finish him off after I loosen him up a little bit. I think there are a ton of question marks with Austin Ekeler this year. I think obviously new quarterback. I don't know. They're just trying to do some new things with this offense. We haven't seen Tyrod Taylor in a while, and however bad of a season Phil Rivers had last year, he still checked down a ton, and he gave Austin Ekeler a ton of work. I get it. Melvin Gordon's not there anymore. And last year, early on in the season, first 4 weeks, Austin Ekeler was amazing when Melvin Gordon was out or was holding out last year. But I still think there are a ton of question marks here. I have him in the middle of the second round. I would not spend a first-round pick on Austin Ekeler.
Yeah, I feel like Justin Jackson there is a little threatening too. I feel like this is a backfield that I don't want to invest a second-round pick in, really, unless I really have to at the end of the second round.
So on the Justin Jackson note, we saw what happened when Austin Ekeler was the top running back for the first 4 weeks. Justin Jackson didn't touch the ball. He got like maybe 5 touches. The issue is when Melvin Gordon came back, which is understandable. If they were going to run the same stuff as last year, which I imagine Anthony Lynn would, even with new quarterback questions, Justin Jackson doesn't scare me as much. That being said, he is a very interesting late-round flyer because he could have that kind of role.
Yep.
So after the Austin Ekeler discussion, we go back to some sense of normalcy here. At 17 with DeAndre Hopkins, newly acquired by Arizona. He, after small round running backs, comes in just after Tyreek Hill on the wide receiver list.
Yeah, this guy's awesome. Like I was talking about, I like the Arizona offense this year, but he's going to get less work, less targets in Arizona than he did last year in Houston. And since it's a new offense, this is why he's getting a little bit of a dip outside of the top 5 wide receivers for us.
Yeah.
And as quickly as consistency came, it is gone again because we have Joe Mixon next, who is really all over the place. Amir has him at 15, Bryce has him at 29, and I have him at 10.
So this one's definitely on me for having him low. I have him very, very low. To me, it's just an offense question. I'm not buying that Bengal offense. The offensive line is terrible. There's always an adjustment period for rookie quarterbacks. They do get A.J. Green back, which might put more emphasis on the passing game. They're going to want to work with Joe Burrow. Joe Mixon's the best football player that they have offensively, quarterbacks aside, because they're kind of a different breed. He is the best football player that they have offensively. I'm not buying the Bengals as a team, which is why I have him low. I do understand what he did the end of last year was incredible. I'm not sure I'm willing. I still have him at 29, which is a early second-round pick in the 12th team.
Early third-round pick.
Yes, thank you. Third-round pick.
Yeah, I think – look, I like Joe Mixon a lot. I had him last year. He burned me at the beginning of the season. But after their bye week, it seemed like Zach Taylor kind of flipped the switch. He didn't try to do too much with the playbook. He said, Joe Mixon, you're our best offensive player. Here's the ball. Take us to the end zone. That's what he did last year. I have a feeling that they're going to try to lean on him a lot more, just like they did last year. This coming year, with Joe Burrow coming in. He's got to learn the playbook. AJ Green coming back. He's going to have a little bit of rust after missing all of last season. I think Joe Mixon's a good player. I think this offense is actually going to be better than it was last year. And like I said, at the end of last year, Joe Mixon was a top 10 guy, top 10 running back. So I think he keeps that going. I think he's great value. End of the first round or beginning of the second.
Yeah, I agree. Basically with what Amir said there, I think that in this offense, they're going to maybe rely on Joe Mixon for some sense of stability on the early downs and kind of run it a bit more. As maybe early on in games, they want Joe Burrow kind of to get a little bit more acclimated to just the game and the game speed. But I just feel that he leaves a lot less question marks than some of these other people at that end of the first round, beginning of the second round. So that's because he has proven that he is able to do this, and he is the number one in that offense without really questioning. You have Giovanni Bernard, who's always there, but then he's more of kind of a PPR, very late round pickup. So I just like him there in that kind of number 10 slot. I'd say maybe indifferent between him and Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs at that spot. That's why I have them 9, 10, 11. But I feel like he is kind of that caliber.
I think definitely less questions with those two other guys you mentioned compared to Joe Mixon. So that's why I have them a little bit higher, but yeah. And so next up at number 19, we have Chris Godwin, who last year exploded onto the scene with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Led by Jameis Winston. And he kind of took over that role before last year. No one really saw him coming. Everyone thought, oh, Mike Evans, clear number one in Tampa Bay. But that was not the case last year. Chris Godwin was actually the number 2 wide receiver as a finish last year, which was amazing. And our rankings reflect that. We have him in the top, or I guess wide receiver 7, looks like.
Yeah, Chris Godwin. The only change there is going to be the quarterback, which actually might serve to favor Chris Godwin, given that Mike Evans is more the deep threat and Tom Brady uses the middle of the field. We saw what happened with Julian Edelman basically throughout his entire career. Moving on from that, rounding out the top 20 is our first tight end. Of course, everyone knows who this is going to be. Travis Kelce. You got to buy the Chief offense. He's basically a wide receiver that you plug and play every week. There's not much more to be said. Some guys are it's basically just a draft strategy question, but if you want to jump into tight end, he is absolutely worth a second-round pick that we're saying here at 20.
And then at 21, we have Miles Sanders, who is very hotly debated amongst the three of us. Amir has him at 16, Bryce has him at 25, and I have him at 19. So we'll get the pro case first. Amir, why do you have him at 16?
Okay, I like Miles Sanders. Reflected in my rankings at 16. Beginning of the second round guy. He's obviously a running back. He was really good last year. He got a ton of receiving work. He got a ton of running work for the Eagles once he kind of got acclimated to the playbook at the end of the season. And he was really good last year. It comes down to that. And his talent is totally clear. If you watch him play, he's an awesome talent. The Eagles are a pretty solid team. They have a pretty good offense with Carson Wentz. So he'll have a lot of opportunities to score. I will say he has slipped a little bit in my rankings recently. He came up with an injury recently, and his offensive line, I think his right side of his offensive line has also got a little bit hurt. So that brings him down a little bit. That's why he's kind of at the tail end of this kind of tier of running backs. That's why I have him at 16. But these guys don't agree. They don't like him.
So I have him a little low, really just because of those reasons. He coming in with offensive line injury risk. There's two things that I generally equate with fantasy football. I'm picking a receiver oftentimes based on the quarterback. If I don't believe in the quarterback, I won't pick the receiver unless he's foolproof. Same goes for a running back and an offensive line. We'll get to Jonathan Taylor later, just as a little preview. Best offensive line in football, you can be high on him. The Eagle offensive line is great. It's actually a really, really good offensive line, especially for run blocking. But if half of them are hurt, I don't know what that's going to look like, and I'm not willing to spend a crazy high pick on him. I have him first pick in a 12-team league, first pick of the third round.
Yeah, certainly. I think that a big question there is also that Doug Peterson he does not like to commit really to a bell cow, and that's kind of what the article that I referenced before mentioned. And so I think with that in mind, I am looking away from Miles Sanders because, like I said, if you're picking a running back this early, you want a guy who you can plug in every week and you know is going to be a number one, not somebody you're going to have to worry about. But if he drops late into the second round, early third round, I'm picking up Miles Sanders.
Yeah, that's awesome value. If you can get Miles Sanders, even mid second round, mid to late second round, that would be awesome. And so next up, we got our next tight end at 22. We got George Kittle. Obviously, everyone saw that one coming. Just a couple slots after Travis Kelce. He was a beast last year. He's a beast on the field. San Francisco looks like they'll keep up what they had going last year in their Super Bowl trip. So I like George Kittle this year. Similar to Travis Kelce, if you can get him end of the second round, beginning of the third round, that would be great value on Travis Kelce.
Definitely. Then coming in at 23 is going to be one of the hotter guys coming into draft season, Kenny Golladay. We're having him here as a mid-tier wide receiver 1. It's going to be a high-volume offense for him. He is the guy, and he's only gotten better in his three years in the league. We each have him ranked in these high to mid 20s picks here. So he's great value if you can get him at the back end of the second round, which actually in our league is what I did.
Bryce is very smart.
Thank you.
And then at 24, we have Mike Evans, the mayor, I should say, of Chris Godwin.
Yeah, and again, we got another wide receiver coming up. We got DJ Moore. Mike seems to be a little bit low on him. I have him at 24, Bryce at 20, but Mike has him at 30. I think he's awesome. I think especially in a half PPR league, he'll get you ton of yards, ton of receptions, and I'm not too concerned about Teddy Bridgewater, especially with the quarterbacks that were thrown to DJ Moore last year. I think Teddy Bridgewater is an upgrade.
Yeah, I think the best way for me to justify this is kind of looking at the wide receivers I have in front of DJ Moore, because I do agree that he's definitely a good pick. If you're kind of in this spot and if you have DJ Moore as your third round pick, I think you can safely say that you made a good pick in that draft and move on. But I have Odell Beckham in front of him, where I just feel that Odell is somebody who can offer a bit more upside at this position. And because this third round is really where you can start to take on risk. This is coming from someone who, after a bit of a draft issue last year where my computer bugged out, took Marlon Mack and then exchanged him for Antonio Brown in the third round because I wanted a wide receiver. And like you can basically, and I made the playoffs, but the point there is you can lose a third round pick and still do relatively well. So if you can take on a risk here for someone who could eventually be a first round talent, I would do that. And I think Odell Beckham Jr. this year, everybody's down on him. That's when you buy him high. So I think he is potentially very good. And I think Adam Thielen is also in it for a bounce back season. He's obviously struggled with injury last year and was a bit frustrating to have on my fantasy team. But I think that you can definitely justify seeing him in front of DJ Moore because DJ Moore's offense is going to have many more question marks coming in just because it's a new system, new quarterback, not exactly sure if it's going to be that successful.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. They say the first 2 rounds where you lose your league, and basically the middle round 6 to 9, 6 to 10 is where you win your league. So if you miss in 3, 4, 5, not a huge deal.
Yeah, I just want to say I think DJ Moore is one of the safest guys in this draft, and I think having such a safe guy at wide receiver 1 at a position where wide receivers are so volatile, I think it's awesome to have DJ Moore. I would even recommend taking him late second round. Bryce took him at the turn at the end of the second round in one of our drafts, and I think that's great value for him.
Yeah. So then coming to 26, going to our first quarterback, and really it's a question between Pat Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. We have these guys ranked. So again, another preview here. 26 is going to be Pat Mahomes, and 28 is Lamar Jackson. So really it's a toss-up. Whatever you're thinking, we have Pat Mahomes at 26. We both these guys highlighted not necessarily because of descent. It's more a draft strategy question. If you want to spend an early pick on a quarterback, by all means, jump at it. If you're a late round QB guy, this doesn't matter as much to you. But Pat Mahomes, probably the safest quarterback you can pick. Lamar Jackson has some more variability, but he has the highest upside of any quarterback in the league, fantasy-wise.
Yeah, I think I'm the only one of us three that has Lamar Jackson ranked higher than Patrick Mahomes. And I think that's just because of the rushing. If you're in a 6-point passing touchdown league, I could see taking Patrick Mahomes over Lamar Jackson, but just rushing for 1,000 yards as a quarterback is such an insane floor and, I guess, ceiling. It does both. It's so amazing to have your quarterback rush for, like I said, 1,000 yards. That's running back numbers, and you're getting him wrapped up into one position at quarterback. I would definitely take Lamar Jackson. And like Bryce said, if you're looking for a quarterback early, these are obviously the two guys you want. I see Mike has Patrick Mahomes ranked at 22, which I think is way too early for a quarterback. End of the second round. The value you can get there, I think at running back and wide receiver is way more than the value you can get from picking Patrick Mahomes. But if either of these guys slide to, I don't know, late third round or into the fourth round, I would definitely pull the trigger on either of these two guys at that spot.
Yeah, who I have right in front of Patrick, or right behind Patrick Mahomes, I should say, is Austin Eckler. So you kind of get where I'm coming here. Not a big fan of Austin Eckler. I feel like Patrick Mahomes is much more stable play here. And I think I also play in at least one 6-point passing touchdown league where,
Me too.
I mean, I feel like ranking Patrick Mahomes there is it kind of if it's a 6-point passing touchdown league, he's probably going to be picked before then. But I feel like if it's not, maybe this could be a little too early, and I kind of just took those feelings and put him here. So that was kind of more of a reflection of the way I approached this than anything else. But after Patrick Mahomes, we have the aforementioned Adam Thielen, where we kind of don't have very much discrepancy at all in the bottom half of the 20s.
Yeah, with Stephon Diggs shipped out of Minnesota, I think Adam Thielen's in for another big year. He got hurt last year, and it was tough to have him after that. But after a full offseason, he should be healthy, ready to go as the number one target for a good offense in Minnesota.
And filling that Stephon Diggs well, just a plug here, Justin Jefferson, go get him in the late rounds. He's going to be a great, great sleeper.
Yeah, he's an awesome late-round flyer. 11th, 12th, 13th round that you can get Justin Jefferson. That'd be awesome. And then coming in next, we have Lamar Jackson. We talked about him at 28. And then at 29, we have Chris Carson, who, after a little bit of run on wide receivers, we have our first running back in a while.
Yeah, with Chris Carson, I guess I'll just take this because Amir and Mike have him at 32. Both have him at 32. I have him at 23. So if you guys have been watching the show for the full year and saw our first episode from last season, which was our top 50, I was incredibly low on Chris Carson. I have very much changed my tune for the same reasons that I was low on him last year. Rashad Penny is out most likely for the year coming off an ACL tear. Chris Carson is the guy in a top 3 volume rushing offense. Yes, Russell Wilson is there, and I also happen to love Tyler Lockett, who we'll get to later. But Chris Carson, we've seen guys come back from injuries before, even really bad ones. Just look at Adrian Peterson coming off the ACL tear in 2012. I do believe in Chris Carson this year, and admittedly 23 is probably a little bit high, but given the premium on running backs this year, I am willing to spend a mid to upper third round pick on him.
Yeah, I like Chris Carson. I have him at the end of the third round. I think his upside isn't quite there for me. That's kind of why I don't have him ranked very high. Like in this range in the third, fourth round, I would much rather – my draft strategy this year seems to be taking a wide receiver in these rounds and spending my first 2 picks on a running back, which is probably why I have him a little bit lower. And I think he's also coming off a pretty bad hip injury, which could limit his use this year. So I like him. Like I said, end of the third round, I think he's a great pick. But I think some of these other guys that we've talked about already, I would take them over him.
And I just want to mention, I think the draft strategy here is going to kind of come into play a little bit because I think Amir mentioned the fact that he's comes after a long string of people at other positions. So you kind of want to think through where you are in the third round if he's still on the board. I think I have him late third round. Bryce has him early third round. Is that right?
No, Bryce has him.
Depending on the league, it's late second, early.
Late second, 12 team.
Yeah, in a 12 team league, right at the end of the second.
But you kind of at this point you want to take stock of your team and say, like, if you don't have a running back 2, he's definitely a great option to fit in there because you're looking at very few options from here on out. But on the other hand, if you do have a running back 2, you may want to look elsewhere. I think that's kind of just the general consensus at this point.
If you went zero RB, I'd jump at him. So if you went like say Michael Thomas, DJ Moore, rounds 1, 2, I'd jump at Chris Carson there in the third. Even if you went, let's just hypothetically say here, Michael Thomas and then Josh Jacobs, if you had, however that worked out, I'd still might go for Chris Carson there, but there are some value guys later at RB2 who I'm actually really excited to talk about later. But no running backs right now. Coming in, rounding out the top 30 is another Mike loves this question mark. Odell Beckham Jr. had all the hype last year. Mike and I both have him at 27. Amr has him at 35. OBJ is a freak athlete. We know what it is. If the Browns offense clicks this year, he could be great. So we have him at 30 overall, low-end wide receiver 1.
This, my friend, is a great example of when you get burned and you feel it. That's why Amr has him so low. That's really what's going on here.
Hey, I don't think I have him that low. 35 is not that low. End of the third round, I think this is a great place for him. Look, obviously he's got immense talent. He can score a ton of touchdowns. I just don't know what to expect from this Browns offense this year. I don't know. Kevin Stefanski, he's a running guy. He did it. He showed it last year. Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs kind of struggled last year. Their passing offense, they were the heaviest run team in football last year. I think Kevin Stefanski, they would only bring him in to accentuate Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. So I'm not sure how much passing they're going to do. I don't think they're going to put the ball in Baker Mayfield's hands. I think that's the only reason. The talent obviously is there with Odell, and he has top 5 wide receiver upside. I think a lot can go wrong.
And with that, at 31 here, we have Amari Cooper, obviously the number 1 wide receiver for Dallas.
Yeah, I like Amari Cooper. I have him higher than you guys. I just think before he got injured, he was awesome. And then he got injured. He struggled to get back, and then he was very inconsistent at the end of the year. I know that's why a lot of people aren't very high on him, but I like Amari Cooper this year.
A lot of Cooper's just buying the Cowboy offense. That's really it. Do you buy Dak?
Yep. And moving on, we got another wide receiver. We got Juju Smith-Schuster looking for a bounce back after he got injured, and Big Ben got injured, and James Conner got injured. The whole Steelers offense got injured. We got Juju Smith-Schuster right here at the end of the third round for all of us. We all seem to agree about where to put him.
Following up Juju Smith-Schuster at 33, we actually have a run really of 5 guys here who come in with immense injury risk, starting with Juju, and we'll go through the rest. 33 is Leonard Fournette, the Jacksonville Jaguar running back. Obviously, injury risk there. It's very well documented. A lot of leg injuries, which is tough for a running back to go through. But with Gardner Minshew under center, he will be the focal point of the offense once again, him and DJ Chark. So we all have him here at 33 overall.
And then at 30, wait, hang on. He was at 32. And then at 33, we have Leonard Fournette.
No, he just said Leonard Fournette.
That's what I said. 33 is Leonard Fournette.
Oh, you said, oh, geez.
33, Leonard Fournette. 34. Who's at 34, Big Mike? Who's at 34?
And then at 34, we have James Conner, who, once again, caused a lot of discrepancy amongst us. I have him at 29. Bryce has him at 45, and Amir's in the middle. Closer to me, though, at 33.
Yeah.
Bryce, you want to lead it off with the
So I will preface this with this is a little bit of me with the whole burn last year, won't get burned again. I had James Conner in 2 leagues. That hurt. But speaking of hurt, he comes in with immense injury risk. I'd say as much as Todd Gurley, which is why we'll get to this, but Todd Gurley is next. That's why they're back-to-back, basically, that we have them in aggregate here. Immense injury risk, and I just don't know. And I'm not sure I'm willing to take that in the third round with that much risk because he does have limited upside compared to guys like Todd Gurley or David Johnson.
Yeah, I think James Conner is one of these guys that we're drafting him here in the 30s and the like high 40s, but he's not gonna end here. If he plays, he's gonna be a top 12 running back, just like he always is when he's on the field. If he doesn't play, he gets hurt, then we're gonna have the same situation as last year. He's gonna tank, and he's not gonna end up anywhere close to this top 20 range. So it's a risk to take, but I mean, I have him at 33 right at the end of the third round. I think this is a pretty solid value for James Conner.
Yeah, like I said, I think this third round is really where you can start to take some more shots, and I think James Conner is one of those people who definitely can give you very high upside in that Steelers offense, even if I was burned by him too, yes, last year, B. So definitely hurt in the same league where I got Antonio Brown. So that was a rough first and third pick, but I still made the playoffs. I got to say, still made the playoffs. Thanks to Darren Waller, my man.
And at 35, Bryce gave you a little bit of a preview to this guy. We got Todd Gurley. The talent's there. It really is. But he's had a ton of injuries. He's got an arthritic knee. What does that even mean?
And Amer's the doctor.
Yeah, that's true. He was on the field. He was on the field a lot last year, but he just couldn't get a lot of production. I don't know whether it was the Rams offense or if it was just the way he was injured. I'm not too sure. So yeah, I am the lowest on Todd Gurley, as you can probably tell by my tone. I'm kind of staying away from him in drafts.
He does have massive injury risk, but the big news coming out of Falcon camp is the coaching staff wants to give him ideally 20 touches a game. And Todd Gurley, 20 touches a game behind a solid offensive line, that's a guy I might be willing to take a chance on. So as long as he's on the field, that's great. But we are in a run here of injured guys because the next one, 36, is David Johnson, whose injury history has been well documented since his breakout 2016 season. That being said, new offense now in Houston. Personally, I believe a lot of the issues last year in Arizona were not as much his injuries because there is that really bad video of where he's basically walking on the field while he had the ball in his hands. But David Johnson is going to be the focal point of the non-Deshaun Watson focal point of the Texan offense. He could be absolutely electric this year if he's on the field. And personally, I think the issues last year were more with Cliff Kingsbury and how he wanted to run the offense and how David Johnson didn't fit that scheme. If he does fit Bill O'Brien's scheme down there, he traded for him, but Bill O'Brien, you never know. David Johnson could be a league winner taken at the 4-5 turn.
Yeah, he's definitely got a ton of upside. I don't think he's a huge injury risk. He has struggled with some injuries before, but they've been kind of fluky, a little bit weird. I think he's going to be able to stay on the field. I have him ranked a little bit lower than Bryce, just because I think this Houston offense is going to take a big step back this year. Just taking away one of the best wide receivers in the game is just going to happen. So and I know they replaced him with Brandon Cooks, but he's just going to have less. It's going to just be a less productive offense. He's going to have less scoring chances. That's kind of why I have him in the late 30s or early 40s.
And I just have to say, I feel very confident if I have any of these four guys as my RB2, because I feel like you're dodging.
Awesome.
If you play, thanks, B. Thanks. No, because I just feel like if you have a first-round pick that's high, like we're talking for 6-7 picks, you're going to get a premier running back theoretically. And then I'm not thrilled taking any of those other running backs in the second round. I don't think that they offer a lot, and that's kind of been the trend. I don't think that they offer more question marks for me than kind of assurances in that second round. So I'd be more happy going wide receiver, tight end, quarterback in that second round if you're in a 6-point passing touchdown league. And then taking one of these guys in the third round / early fourth round, I'd be very happy with that kind of as your RB2 slot, because I feel there's a big hole at running back between those top 6 guys and then these guys. And I feel like if you're in the bottom half of the first round, I don't know what to do. Thankfully, I haven't been in that position, but maybe one of you two wants to weigh in on that a little bit.
I'm going to totally disagree with you this year, Mike. I think the running backs fall off very quickly after about 14 running backs. I think it is just all the way down.
No, I agree. I just think that the fall off is before there's like 7 guys basically in there that you're saying are in this kind of tier, and I'm saying the drop off already happens before that.
See, but that's where we disagree, and I think the drop off. I think the drop off between these first 2 tiers is way closer than the drop off between that second tier and this third tier we're talking about right here. I think I really want one of those. I want 2 running backs in those 2 tiers, especially with the wide receiver depth we're seeing in the third and fourth round. There are a lot of guys over here that I'm just not sure about. A ton of question marks at the running back position. That's why I like to lock and load them in right at the beginning of my draft. I'm almost always going running back to start my draft. I've had a couple where I'm even going running back with my first 3 picks. I don't really trust a lot of these guys that are down here.
Amir using Mike's use my first 8 fantasy baseball picks on pitchers strategy.
Way to go, Mike. Way to go.
I love that strategy though, because it's either you're winning your league because your pitchers are fantastic, or they all got hurt. And that's what's happening to me this year. They all got hurt, and you're really screwed.
Oh,
But Bryce, what do you think about this kind of just general strategy? Running back strategy, I should say.
Honestly, the only way I'm not taking a running back in the first round is if I pick if I pick 6 or 7, and I can get Michael Thomas. That is the only way I'm not picking a running back in the first round. The premium is just way too high. That being said, Mike, if I get one of these guys as my RB2, I'm pretty excited because if they're on the field, they have a shot to be a top 10 running back this year. Any of the 4 that we just went over.
Like, I guess I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you guys because, like I said, I was just thinking of having those top 5 picks where I'm presuming you're getting a premier running back. But kind of what I was talking about is when you're in that 7 to 12 slot, like I don't know what you're doing. And I guess, like I said, I haven't really been in that position yet. But what Amir is describing, I think, is probably the way I would tackle it, but I'd be much less confident with my draft at that point.
Yeah, look, all these draft strategies go out the window if the draft does not go how you plan. You got to kind of let the draft come to you. If you're kind of early in the draft, if you get a Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, and none of these like tier 1 or 2 running backs come back, like if Miles Sanders doesn't come back or if Austin Eckler doesn't come back to you at the end of the second round, then I think it's totally fine going running back, wide receiver. You just got to play the value in the draft. But I think my strategy going in is if it really falls chalk, I usually end up with 2 running backs with my first 2 picks, especially if I'm at the end of this first round, early second round. Even mid first round, mid second round, I'm going running back, just to lock in that position for the season.
I guess I'm just thinking through my ranking again. I guess I was a little too aggressive with my fall off. I think my fall off is probably after the top 10 running backs, or not about like the top 8, because I would also include Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, and Josh Jacobs in that first tier, group. It's the group in between that we're talking about. That's
you're talking about like Austin Eckler,
Miles Sanders,
Kenyon Drake.
Exactly.
Nick Chubb.
Exactly.
Like I think I would take all 4 of those guys as my second pick without like I'd pull the trigger on that in the second round any day of the week.
That's where I am a little bit more in a disagreement.
I think I would definitely do that.
And just real quick, circling back to Amir's point about letting the draft play to you and playing the draft. You mentioned having that first pick and trying to see how things work out. That's actually what happened in our league. I had the 1 pick. I took Christian McCaffrey, and then everyone seemed to take a running back early strategy, and we had running backs fly off the board. Yeah. So I actually, the 2-3 turn went wide receiver, locked down Kenny Golladay and DJ Moore in a full PPR league, and then followed up because I had McCaffrey. I could take a shot. I went running back 4-5, and took 2 guys with some upside, Jonathan Taylor, who I happen to love, and Devin Singletary. So I did not expect that. I definitely expected to have 2 running backs and receiver at the end of the 3rd round, but the way the draft worked out, I did not get it that way, and I had to take a shot. Fortunately, having Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott gives you the flexibility to take that shot later on.
Yeah, I feel like the closer we get to the draft day, the quicker running backs are flying off the board. It's
sure.
Tough. And at the end of the second round, it is tough finding running backs. So that's why I kind of like locking them in. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. You got to just take the value that's on the board. So next up, we're breaking the running back tier. We're at a wide receiver now. At 37, we have Robert Woods for the Rams. I am much higher than these guys on Robert Woods. I think he's awesome. I think, especially with the departure of Brandon Cooks, I think Robert Woods has a chance to be a wide receiver 1, top 12 guy.
Wow. I
think he is so safe that he will always give you production for the entire season, especially in a half PPR where you get the points for the receptions. He's going to get you a ton of yards and a ton of receptions. The touchdowns were not there last season. He only scored 2. They will probably come back this year. Even though he's not the red zone target, he's going to have more than 2 touchdowns this year. I think he's one of the safest guys in the draft. If you have him in a full PPR or a half PPR as your wide receiver 1, I think you're totally fine with that, especially because you're going to have a ton of good running backs if this guy falls to you, if you can pick him up in the 4th round. I do that all the time. Love Robert Woods this year.
Yeah, he's safe, but there is a limited upside, in my opinion. And Mike, I would assume in yours, based on you actually have him rated the lowest of all of us. Um, Again, it's a question of do you buy the Rams offense with Jared Goff, without Brandon Cooks, without Todd Gurley? It's a new look Ram offense in the new look stadium. So we'll see what happens. But speaking of that Rams offense, and this is just generally how it's been working with Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp for their entire careers on the Rams together. Cooper Kupp comes in at 38, one spot behind Woods. For most guys, it's a toss-up, and I'd say that for all three of us. The furthest discrepancy is 3 picks or 3 slots between these guys. For Amer's got him at 3, I have him 1 between, and Mike that has them at 2 between. It's whoever you think is going to be the guy in the Ram offense can be a very solid mid to high tier wide receiver 2 if you buy the Ram offense. So Cooper Kupp is there at 38.
Yeah, the difference between these two guys is just if you're trying to value. It depends on the makeup of your team, I think. If you've taken some risks in the first couple of rounds, first 3 rounds, then I would go with Robert Woods. He's the safer guy. If you're looking to take some risk at this point in the draft, late 3rd, early 4th round, I think Cooper Kupp's the guy. He's got a ton of upside. He's the red zone target in Los Angeles. And I think Sean McVay, any team that has Sean McVay at the head is going to score a lot. I think Cooper Kupp's going to be a big part of that. So either of these guys are good. Like I said, I'm buying either one in the 4th round.
And I should mention before we go off Cooper Kupp real quick, we actually have them tied at the average rating here is 37.67 for both of them. So it's really just a toss-up. We had them rated this way. Just that's the way that we did it.
Yep.
And then at 39 is Jets running back Le'Veon Bell. Amer much higher on him. Amer has him at 29. I have him at 38, and Bryce has him at 47. So we have 10 pick increments almost between the 3 of us.
So Bell,
very controversial running back.
Bell's very, he has questions. I'll agree. I will take that. He has questions. At this point in the draft, I think you can take some shots. And I think the workload that this guy is going to get is crazy. Geriatric Frank Gore does not scare me. I think the Jets are going to be better this year. Sam Darnold's going to take a step forward in his 3rd year. He's not going to get mono. He already had it. We're done with that. No more mono for
Can't get it twice.
Sam Darnold. Very unlikely to get mono twice. That's a draft strat coming from the doctor up in here, Big Mike. I think if this was a standard league, I would drop him a little bit, but I think his involvement in the passing game is almost unique at this point in the draft. A ton of these running backs you're going to find here are going to have a lot less work. I think the workload itself, even if he's not very efficient, even if they don't score a lot, I think the workload is going to carry Le'Veon Bell and give him that floor you're looking for at this point in the draft in terms of running backs. So that's why I have him. I have him, like you guys said, 29. Maybe, admittedly, I might be a little bit high on him with a lot of the question marks in the Jets offense and Adam Gase. But I like him a lot.
So
my New York sports talk radio is finally going to come out here. You have to realize that So I have him. I think he's probably going to get a relatively substantial workload. But you have to remember that they traded for him before Adam Gase was brought in. Adam Gase really wasn't the one that was committed to working with Le'Veon Bell. So that's why I'm a little hesitant about just how much, because theoretically he should get a lot of carries. But I'm always kind of a little skeptical before I would click draft on Le'Veon Bell for that reason.
No, I get it. And that for me, that's the thing that really scares me the most is Adam Gase. He's a loose cannon. He's not a good coach. I don't know why the Jets still have him. I don't know why.
I don't necessarily agree with that. He's a quarterback whisperer, but okay.
No, he's not. He's really not. He hasn't done anything in the league. I don't know how he's gotten 2 head coaching jobs with the Dolphins and then the Jets. I don't know how that's happening. But I think Le'Veon Bell had a ton of work.
He wows people in interviews. Wows them.
Le'Veon Bell had a ton of work last year. The offense just wasn't good. I think they take a step forward. Like I said, I think the key is Sam Darnold. And Le'Veon Bell's he's the best player on this football team. Definitely in terms of the offense. And they got to throw to somebody. And they got to run the offense through somebody. I think it's going to be Le'Veon Bell.
So I represent the other side of the argument here, actually for a lot of the same reasons that Amer called out, but I guess the opposite take on them. I am not buying the Jet offense at all. I do not think Sam Darnold's a good quarterback, really at all. I think the Jets are going to be playing from behind the majority of the time. You want to talk about a guy that they can lean on? Jamison Crowder is getting double-digit targets in half the games that he played, something like that. I think he had 17 targets week 1, which is an aberration, but still. Le'Veon Bell is an aging running back. He was not overly effective last year. And another major issue, again, I'll bring it up, running back along with the offensive line. The Jet offensive line is brutal. Their first-round pick, Mekhi Becton, is a beast. He will be a great left tackle for a long time, not this year. He is a total project coming out of Louisville. He will be great down the line with development. He is not built to be a run blocker right now. And that does bother me with Le'Veon Bell. That being said, he is the shiftiest running back in the backfield with his elite patience and footwork. So he can make up for that. I just don't buy the Jet offense at all. The Patriots are not going to be as bad as everyone thinks. With Cam Newton or Jarrett Stidham, doesn't really matter.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the Bills, I think, are a playoff team. Absolutely.
Oh, 100%.
Then the Dolphins.
All right, next up, we got another wide receiver. The Bears, we got Allen Robinson coming in at number 40. A lot of people have him higher than we have him ranked, but the three of us, we are not a believer. We are not believers in Mitch Trubisky / Bears offense.
And our usual podcast host, or I should say podcast guest, Ben, would very much agree with us. He's very questioning he's the only Bears fan of the four of us, but he's very much questioning Mitch Trubisky's ability to be an effective quarterback. And I just have to say, I would never, I mean, he's low. I have him at 35, which is the highest of all of us, but I'd never see a situation where I'd actually draft Allen Robinson.
Yeah, his ADP is high. His ADP is at 28.
He's going second round.
His ADP at 28. None of us are touching him. I will say, if Nick Foles gets on the field and is maybe Super Bowl winning Nick Foles, I think this guy has some potential. But I'm not sure we're going to see that, and it's a tough bet to make on Allen Robinson.
And now you're not going to have, at least early on in the season, you're not going to have a running threat with David Montgomery out 2 to 4 weeks. Tariq Cohen does not scare me as a running back. As a receiver, he's awesome. He does not scare me as a running back.
Dave Montgomery's there, though.
No, he got hurt.
I just said he got hurt.
First couple of weeks.
Coming in here at 41, and what I really should mention is the guys we have 40. We all have on average rated at 40. So again, that's just how it fell. At 41 is going to be the second receiver in Atlanta, Calvin Ridley, arguably the best route runner in football. If you've seen some of that tape, especially against the Bengals last season, absurd route runner. Gets a lot of work, so we do like him as a low-end wide receiver 2 with a ton of upside. Should Julio get hurt, he really has top 5 receiver upside.
I don't even think Julio needs to get hurt for this guy to be awesome. Like you guys said, like Bryce said, elite route runner. He's a first-round NFL draft pick on a great offense. This guy's going to have a great year. He's going to take an enormous step forward. I could see him being this year's version of Chris Godwin.
Wow.
The second guy, you always think he's never going to overtake the first guy. I'm not saying he's going to overtake Julio Jones, but what I'm saying is I think this guy has elite upside. I absolutely love Calvin Ridley in this offense.
Yeah, I mean, at 42, we had Jonathan Taylor. Bryce kind of mentioned him. And I think I guess we'll pause here for a while because I think he warrants a definite discussion because Bryce and I both have him at 37 and Amir has him at 46. And I just want to say, I think I have him at 37 more as a reflection of the fact that if I'm picking Jonathan Taylor, I can honestly walk away being excited about my selection here, which I think is positive as opposed to walking away feeling that you should have made a different pick and regretting it. I think that Jonathan Taylor at this point in the draft is kind of a very good selection.
So if I can jump in here real quick to piggyback on that, very high praise for Jonathan Taylor. I think he has the highest upside of any running back in the league this year.
Relative to his draft position, maybe. I don't agree. Okay, yeah, okay, all right.
But still, you're looking at. I saw him run at Wisconsin. Phenomenal running back.
Look, he looks like a linebacker. He's huge. He's awesome.
If he takes carries from Marlon Mack, which I think he will by week 6 or so, he is running behind the best offensive line in football. That matters a lot. I'm just going to hand him the ball and put him right behind Quentin Nelson's back and just let Quentin Nelson go to work. Jonathan Taylor could explode. And if you get him in the back in the middle of the fourth round, I'm loving that pick. I have him as my RB2, my weekly RB2 in one league.
Yeah, I like Jonathan Taylor. I have him the lowest at 46, which is like you guys said, lower. You guys have him at 37. I just think you're kind of betting on the fact that he's going to get the job. And while I do think he is going to get the job, it's likely that it's going to be a split backfield with Marlon Mack. I understand that he's a more talented, he's a bigger guy. He's going to be a better running back. I'm just not sure this year is the year for Jonathan Taylor. I think Marlon Mack is still there. He was the guy last year. I think this is going to be more of a split backfield, which is not really what I'm looking for at this point in the draft. But I do agree he does have a ton of upside. Not quite
You are right.
most upside in football upside, but I think he's got good upside.
You are right on the fact that it'll probably be a split backfield. The only thing that I find a couple things encouraging about it not being a split backfield relatively early in the season. They spent the second round pick on him, and they're clearly trying to contend because they have Philip Rivers at quarterback.
Yep.
If they weren't trying to contend, they'd let Jacob Eason start. But they have arguably a top 5 defense on talent in the NFL. Guys like Malik Hooker, Darius Leonard, great defenders. A lot of question marks in their division, so they're going to go for it, and I think they can ride Jonathan Taylor if they want to, because they did spend a premium selection in this year's draft.
Yeah, I will say I think it's tough to draft him this high. I think one of the reasons I don't like drafting him this high is just because if you draft him this high, you're going to have to start him, and I'm not sure he's going to give you value at the beginning of the season. Like Bryce said, he thinks he's going to get the job by week 6. That's 6 weeks of almost wasted for a pick this high. It's tough to handicap your league for even 3 or 4 weeks. It's tough to handicap your league for that long when you're fighting for a playoff spot.
I did get him in our league at 48, so I actually got him lower than everybody, which I was pumped to get him at the 4-5 turn.
All right, next up, Seattle. We're out on the West Coast. We got Tyler Lockett. He's coming in at 43 for us. Me and Mike agree. We have him at 45. Totally the same. But Bryce has him way high, 13 picks higher than we do. He has Tyler Lockett at 32.
Yeah, so a couple things I like about Tyler Lockett. This is a run-first offense. It is, which is the only concern. Russell Wilson is an exceptional famer in my book, probably most people's books. He's now shown in back-to-back years he can throw touchdowns on 8% of his passes, 6 to 8% of his passes, which is absurd.
That's an insane number.
But every time everyone says it's going to regress, it doesn't regress, which is incredible. DK Metcalf does scare me. He's going to take a step forward. He is the red zone target. Tyler Lockett's yards, air yards per target is crazy high. He Cortland Sutton are similar kinds of players in their offenses. The roles that they're going to play. I love Tyler Lockett this year as a mid to upper tier wide receiver 2 because he's relatively safe. He's Russell Wilson's number 1 guy, and I will take Russell Wilson's number 1 guy every time. I'm admittedly a little higher on him than I probably should be, but I'm gonna prioritize a little bit of safety here.
Yeah, I like some things about Tyler Lockett. Like I said, I have him at 45. I like the fact that last year, before he got injured against San Francisco, he was wide receiver 7, which is an elite guy. It was awesome. After he got hurt, he struggled a little bit with health and also the emergence of DK Metcalf. And that's kind of where the big reason that I have him lower than you, Bryce, and at 45. It's just because I think since this is a run-first team and they're such a heavy run team, I don't think this offense can support 2 top 20 wide receivers. And in those 2, in this case, would be DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I don't think either of those 2 guys are going to be top 20. They both missed the cut of top 20 for me. I still like Tyler Lockett. I think he's a solid guy, but I'm not sure that this offense can support those guys, even though Russell Wilson's amazing.
No, that's fair. There are definitely concerns with Tyler Lockett. Again, this might be a draft strategy thing. If you're looking for safety, if you're looking for upside, that's really the main question in these 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds.
Yep.
Oh, does that bring it? That does bring it to me. So following up on Tyler Lockett, coming in at 44 is Melvin Gordon, the Denver Bronco running back. We all have him respectively. Amr 42, I am at 44, Mike at 40. So we're all hearing these lower 40 numbers, higher 40 numbers, however you put it. He's a great football talent. You have 3 running backs in that backfield. That's the question mark. Him, Phil Lindsay, Royce Freeman doesn't scare me as much. But if you believe Melvin Gordon's going to get the lion's share, he's a great selection here at value. Because if Philip Lindsay goes down or if Melvin Gordon wins the job, he's going to be a running back 1.
Yeah, ascending Broncos offense. I just think there are a couple question marks. That's why he's down here in the 40s for me. Yeah.
And then we have 2 wide receivers tied for 45. And I think this is a good discussion to group because 2 of us definitely agree on the order. And then there's a third who's just a freaking wild card. That's a 20-pick difference, almost 18-pick difference between these 2. So just to lay this down, we have A.J. Brown and Keenan Allen. Those are the 2 guys here. Bryce has A.J. Brown at 50. I have A.J. Brown at 48. Amr has him at 34. And then Keenan Allen, Amr has at 52. Bryce has him at 39, and I have him at 41. So Amr, we'll let you try to describe what's going on here because I'm not very convinced.
I'm not trying to convince you, Mike. I'm trying to convince the listeners. Okay, Big Mike? With A.J. Brown.
Of a bad strategy.
With A.J. Brown, the end of last season was insane. You need to go back and look. He was awesome. His deep threat ability and his connection with Ryan Tannehill was insane. I think this guy's upside, top 5 wide receiver upside. I think he can be the wide receiver 5 this year. I think he's awesome. He's not going to get a lot of catches, I will admit. So in a half PPR and a PPR league, it's not going to be as safe.
He could catch every one of Ryan Tannehill's passes, and he'd still only have like 20 fantasy points.
That's just false. Well, check the numbers, Big Mike. A.J. Brown, I think in a standard league especially in a standard league, this guy is going to be awesome. His production is unmatched. He's a physical freak. He's got another year. They're going to try to do the same thing they did at the end of last year when he was awesome. I like A.J. Brown a lot this year.
And then Keenan Allen?
Look, it's kind of the opposite. I think these 2 offenses are going in opposite directions. One's trending up, one's trending down. The Chargers, I don't think they're going to be that good. Their quarterback room isn't great. They got a rookie. They got Tyrod Taylor. I think Tyrod Taylor's a little underrated, but I still don't think that he's a great quarterback. I know Keenan Allen is an extremely talented guy. I do think he's more talented than A.J. Brown. I just don't think that the offense in L.A. for the Chargers is going to be good, and that's why it's kind of the same reason I'm talking about. I have dropped Austin Eckler a little bit lower than Bryce, but I just think Keenan Allen is going to struggle this year, so I have him right outside my top 50.
So I have, for the same reason that you have Austin Eckler low and Keenan Allen low, I have Austin Eckler high and Keenan Allen high. I think both these guys can be safety nets. We saw Larry Fitzgerald was a solid flex play last year as the safety net for Kyler Murray. Tyrod Taylor is new to the offense, so in a sense, rookie to the system. And Justin Herbert is a pure rookie quarterback, true rookie quarterback, 6th overall pick. I think Keenan Allen could be just as safe a safety net as Austin Eckler is. And he can test it going deep a little bit. Mike Williams, I don't touch with a 10-foot pole this year. No chance. But Keenan Allen, I'm willing to take a shot on. A.J. Brown, I have him inside my top 50 at 50. Again, the concern, Amr, you brought it up, is just he's not going to get touches. And I don't necessarily – and for Ryan Tannehill, I want to see him do it again. And if he proves me wrong, great. Guy was a first-round pick. He kind of busted in Miami. If you believe he can do it again, he will. But really, Mike Vrabel is going to ride or die with Derrick Henry.
Look, I think even if they ride or die with Derrick Henry, as they showed last year, A.J. Brown, he had 1,000 yards last year and 8 touchdowns.
No, don't get me wrong. I thought he was the best receiver in last year's class as a football player. I thought he should have been the first receiver off the board, and he's great. But fantasy-wise, it's just going to be a question of targets.
Look, I think they're going to throw enough. There's nobody else to throw to.
Corey
in Tennessee. Not a single other wide receiver on the roster that is of any relevance to anybody. This is the guy. And once Marcus Mariota got out of there were ton of just garbage games. Marcus Mariota he had a tough season last year with Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill turned it up, and I think they're going to bring it right back this year. A.J. Brown was just awesome at the end of last year. I see him continuing that. He's going to take a step forward. That's why I have him in my top 40. And so moving on, we got another wide receiver backing up our two back-to-back. We got Cortland Sutton at 47. A lot of people like the Denver offense, and looks like we're right there. We all kind of agree. We're all at 45. Yeah, anything to add? Denver offense looks like it'll get better.
Just the only issue is going to be target share. They took Jerry Jeudy in the first round. Noah Fant has a solid connection with Drew Lock we saw at the end of last year, but so does Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
I do like him a lot as a very high ceiling wide receiver too.
Yeah, the connection with Drew Lock is what's really pushing him up my board. He was even a Pro Bowler last year, so he's got the talent. He's got the system. Let's just see if the Denver Broncos offense can deliver.
Yeah. And that brings us to 48. The last guy in our top 50 that we want to have a real discussion on, and that's Jacksonville Jaguar, DJ Chark. Broke out into the league last year, really exceptional year, 1,000 yards. Had a real connection with Gardner Minshew, was explosive off the line. Mike and I are not buying it as much. Mike has him at 49, just inside his top 50. I have him at 53, just outside my top 50. But Amer has him at 37. So Amer does like him as a mid to low end wide receiver too.
Yeah.
Really, why? I'm just curious. Why are you buying? It sounds negative, but it's not. What makes you buy DJ Chark that he can do it again?
Yeah, it's
taking my role as resident contrarian.
All it is the connection that he has with Gardner Minshew. That's where I'm coming from. The Jags were not good last year. They're not going to be good this year. I do think that they're going to regress, and I do think that that's a reason why I get why you guys are low on him. But I just think he's been consistent. He's got the measurables to keep up his wide receiver one status. He's going to be the number one in Jacksonville, no question. I think the connection he's got with Gardner Minshew is awesome. And this guy's his deep numbers, his air yards, his deep targets, the numbers he produced on those were out of this world. I think he's a great deep threat, and he has a good route tree. Big Bryce. I see Bryce smiling when I mentioned the route tree. Similar to A.J. Brown, he had 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns last year. I like where DJ Chark is going. I think he's a consistent guy. He proved he could do it last year. I think he's going to do it again this year. Nothing to add, guys?
No.
Nothing from me.
He could do it. He absolutely could. If you want to take the chance, go for it. If you want to take him fourth round pick, definitely good value for a guy that was top 10 last year in PPR formats.
And then at 49, we have tight end Mark Andrews, obviously involved in the Baltimore Ravens offense, and really very little discrepancy amongst us. Amer has him at 49, Bryce has him at 49, I have him at 52.
Yeah, I just think, he's a tight end. He's being drafted at 36, which is crazy. Although I do think he's the third best tight end. I think he's going to have a great season this year. I don't like the end of the third round ADP for Mark Andrews. I don't end up having him in any of my leagues. It's tough to justify that with a tight end, especially with the type of value that you can get there.
Yeah. I'd say only jump for Kelsey Kittle. That's really it.
Yeah. I think even if this guy falls into the 5th round, I'd be okay taking him and Zach Ertz in the 5th round. But after that, once those 4 guys are gone, I'm kind of punting the position to the end of the draft. Because all these guys are kind of the same. The Hunter Henry, Evan Ingram, Tyler Higbee. You guys have a ton of question marks coming in. I'm not sure any of them are really differentiators at the tight end position. And rounding out our top 50, we got a running back in Baltimore. We got Mark Ingram.
Yeah.
I'll seem to agree on him.
Not much to say.
Bryce is the
Mark
lowest at 57. Is that just because of J.K. Dobbins?
Yeah, just a lot of mouths to feed. Not only did J.K. Dobbins, Gus the Bus is there. Justice Hill, one of their, I think it was a 4th round pick out of Oklahoma State last year. A lot of mouths to feed. Mark Ingram is aging. That's the only question mark that I have.
Yeah, Mark Ingram, he was pretty touchdown dependent last year, but I feel like this guy always outperforms his ADP. Wherever you draft him, he almost always finishes higher than that in his career. I I think he's a solid guy. I think he's a solid bench piece out here at 50.
In terms of running backs, just to give everybody a feel for what I'm thinking running back here, the only guys that we haven't talked about that I would take over Mark Ingram at the running back position, Devin Singletary, who I happen to just love. I really believe in him. I don't think Zach Moss is a big threat. And based on where you're picking him, I'd take a shot at Cam Akers. You're talking about the running back probably in Los Angeles. I'm willing to take a shot at Cam Akers over Mark Ingram, depending on how the draft has been going so far.
Yeah, Cam Akers has a chance to emerge. There are a lot of running backs in Los Angeles for the Rams. They got Darrell Henderson. They got Malcolm Brown. They have Cam Akers. Although they did draft him pretty high, so they put some stock into him. They must like him. So I get that pick.
All right, and that rounds out our Between the 20s top 50 for 2020. Until the NFL season starts, we hope everybody continues to tune into Between the 20s. Hope your drafts go well, and let us know if you have any comments, questions, concerns. Obviously, subscribe, hit us up with a like, and all that good stuff. But until next time, I should say, we hope everything goes well, your fantasy draft goes well, and we will see you then.